It's time for Northwestern Outdoors Radio, the award-winning broadcast covering fishing, hunting, and outdoor recreation throughout the Great Northwest. Northwestern Outdoors is brought to you every week by Max Lure Company, producing a legacy of innovation since 1969, by Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter, and by Loophole, America's optical authority. Also sponsoring the show every week is Shiloh Inn & Suites, offering affordable excellence throughout the West. Mardon Resort, the place to fish and hunt in eastern Washington, and the Wallowa County Chamber of Commerce, where nature is on display in Northeast Oregon all year long. And now, let's head into the field with your host, John Cruz.
It's Labor Day weekend, kind of the grand finale to summer. I hope you're camping out there. This is the traditional end of the summer camping season, though quite frankly, I think we got a few weeks left to go if you enjoy that sort of thing like I do. And we thought for this show, we would take you to a fantastic camping destination. It's called Whidbey Island, a 55-mile-long island in Northwest Washington. It borders Puget Sound's Admiralty Inlet. Gorgeous place to visit, and there's a lot to do there. We're going to start off by talking to John Crimmins with Washington State Parks. He's going to tell you about 3 great camping destinations that are all state parks here at Whidbey Island. 2 of them are old military forts, and one of them has got all sorts of things to do. Whether you like fishing or hiking or wildlife watching or just spending time looking out over the water, these 3 parks you're going to love, and we'll throw in a bonus 4th day park as well. Fishing has been really good in Puget Sound lately for both pink and silver salmon, and those same fish are starting to come into North Sound rivers like the Skagit River. Kevin Johns with Holiday Sports is going to tell you how you can catch your share of both humpies and silvers this month, whether you're fishing in the salt or fishing in the fresh water. Speaking of fishing, we've got an extended Max Minute for you with Lance Mers, and we're going to be focusing on trout this week with a lure called the Wedding Ring Pro, and even tell you a few lakes you might want to try it out at. Heading back to Whidbey Island, we are going to take you on a whale watching trip. Captain Carl Williams is our host. The boat is the 101-foot-long Island Adventurer 3, operated by Island Adventures out of Anacortes. We had a great time with them. We got to see humpback whales, orca whales, minke whales, and a whole lot more. I can't wait to share that with you. In addition to all of this, well, we've got something a little poignant too. We're going to share a passing of some 3 young men who were fighting fire in north central Washington, and our trivia question of the week from Sportsman's Warehouse. Your chance to win a $25 gift card also has to do with wildland firefighting. But before we get any further into this broadcast, it's time for another edition of Sportsman Spotlight, brought to you every week by the Northwest Ag Information Network. This week, host David Sparks is talking about a pretty unusual species of quail. I think you'll enjoy this segment, which is sponsored by Nate Luther's Guide Service. If you want to catch salmon, or steelhead, or sturgeon on the Snake River south of Clarkson and Lewiston, Nate's the guy to go with. I got to fish with him earlier this year, had an absolute blast. This guy knows his stuff, and he's just a fun person to spend a day on the water with. Find out more about fishing with Nate, who will get fish in the boat for you, at his website, NateLuthersGuidedFishing.com.
Ever heard of a harlequin quail? David Sparks, Sportsman Spotlight. The harlequin quail, found throughout Central America and the southwest of the United States, is also known as the Montezuma quail, Mearns quail, and the fool's quail. The bird is popular among game bird hunters, where it can sometimes be found in open pastures and fields eating insects, which is a primary ingredient in their feed. They have a unique coloration of feathers, which aids in their means of camouflage. Old friend of the show, Ed Banks, hunts these birds and told me about their interesting flight pattern.
The dog will be pointing, you walk up, and about a couple feet away, then they'll kick up, and they fly, and they try and get around a tree as fast as possible. Very explosive flight, and real fast and low. They kind of live in an oak savanna, and so when they fly, it's quite common that they jump and they bend around the first tree they can, which, if you think about that evolutionary-wise, if a hawk is after you, that's a pretty good thing to do.
They try and put the tree between you and them.
They kind of swing around a tree if they can a lot of times. Yep.
Who would have known a quail would have that much intelligence?
Well, I think having a hawk hunt you for 10,000 years helps. Very explosive, fast flight. And they're beautiful. They call them harlequins quail also. Very pretty birds, the males.
I know one quail that wasn't that smart. He couldn't spell potato.
How is that?
Dan Quayle. Do you remember that flap?
Oh, I do. I remember that.
This is David Sparks for Sportsman Spotlight.
Have you fished with Nate Luther before? He's the guide who's always catching fish out of his big boat painted in Seattle Seahawks blue and green. Nate grew up around Lewiston, Idaho. He has been fishing the Snake River and the Clearwater for as long as he can remember, and he wants to take you out on a trip where you can catch Chinook salmon to 25 pounds or steelhead up to 20 pounds. Here's how you do it. Go to his website, NateLuthersGuideservice.com. That's NateLuthersGuideservice.com, or give him a call at 208-503-9204. That's 208-503-9204 for an awesome Chinook salmon and steelhead catching adventure.
Today's line of portable camp stoves from Camp Chef have come a long way from your father's propane stove, featuring matchless ignition, more cooking power, and in some cases a built-in grill or extra burner. Look for the complete line of Mountain Series stoves at your local sporting goods store or online at campchef.com. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
At Leupold Optics, they guarantee performance. Those other optics companies, they just warranty failure. That's why every Leupold product has a lifetime guarantee. Think of it as a warranty you'll never need to cash in on. Find out more at leupold.com.
You're back with Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. If you're looking for some ideas and where to go for Labor Day weekend next year, well, one place that you ought to consider is Whidbey Island over in Western Washington. It's right on Puget Sound, and there's 3 great state parks that you can camp at and do all sorts of fun things. With us here to tell us more is John Crimmins. He is the park manager for several of these parks, and we are broadcasting from Fort Casey. John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
John, let's run through 3 parks today. We'll start off with the one we're at right here. It's the one I'm camping at. I love this place, Fort Casey State Park. Tell our listeners a little bit about this former military installation that is now a playground.
Well, it's a great park. There's all sorts of stuff to do. Pretty much any interest you might have, we have something for you. From fishing to hiking to just exploring some old gun emplacements, there's something for everyone. If you like flying kites or diving or watching birds, we've got it here for you.
Oh, you absolutely do. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love this place. I mean, you got this picturesque view over Admiralty Inlet. You got the gun emplacements, and you even got a couple of the old guns that were brought here from the Philippines that you can go ahead and check out. You got the huge parade ground, like you said, perfect for kite flying. You've got the beach where I was fishing for pink salmon this morning, along with quite a few other people, and there were a few caught, by the way. And you've got this cute little campground, only about 25 spaces, that is really popular.
It sure is. It's a hard thing to get into that campground because it's on the reservation system now. Folks usually need to make reservations about 9 months in advance to get in there. And some of those water sites seem like they're nearly impossible to get into, but
if you're lucky, you can. If you're lucky and you're right there, the 9-month mark, you can. And again, great little sites right across from the ferry terminal, so you can watch the ferries come and go. You can actually toss out a crab ring, just literally right out of the campground, and go ahead and catch some crabs. And there's even a few keepers, a few Dungeness and rock crabs that are keepers. But check those regulations before you do it, because it's only open certain times of the year and certain days of the week. And you've got some wildlife here too. I mean, you've got marine life, and you've got, well, some hopping critters at the very least, called cottontail rabbits here at the park, don't you?
Oh, we sure do. We've got more than we know what to do with about those guys. We also have some great wildlife viewing out on Keystone Spit, which is just right next to Fort Casey State Park. There's a birding platform out there where you can go out and see all sorts of birds, lots of birds of prey out there hunting, so you can see them right there in their natural environment.
All right, so that's Fort Casey State Park, and we just barely scratched the surface of that one, but we need to move on. Fort Eby, right by Coupeville, doesn't get a whole lot of press. Tell our listeners about this one.
Well, lots of campsites up at Fort Eby, 40 some odd campsites up at Fort Eby, a great wooded campground, very different feel than Fort Casey. Definitely more of a family type campground. Fort Eby also has a World War II gun emplacement that you can visit and explore. It has many, many miles of trails that actually connect with Island County's trail system, the Kettles Trails. So if you're a mountain biker, it is paradise. There's just miles and miles you can explore out there. Lots of, range of difficulty from really easy trails to some real complex trails to get into out there.
All right. In addition to what we just talked about, these trails, I understand there's also a lake there at Fort Eby too.
There sure is. It's a great lake just to walk around and to sit by and relax. Very, very quiet. Not a real busy part of the park, but definitely one of the most beautiful spots in the park.
So there you go, folks. Fort Eby is another choice for you. You're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We're talking to John Crimmins, who's breaking down the fun things you could do at several state parks on Whidbey Island. The next one we're going to talk about once had the title, in fact, recently had the title, the most popular state park in the state of Washington, and for very good reason, Deception Pass State Park. There's a lot going on there, and in addition to some absolute beautiful views.
That's right. There's a ton of fishing at Deception Pass. If you enjoy fishing, you can fish all by yourself, or you can fish with a big group of people. It depends on what you like. Definitely have a great chance of catching something there. You've got some amazing views off the bridge. You also have miles and miles of trail there at Deception. If you're interested in history, the park was built originally by the Civilian Conservation Corps, and so there's an interpretive center that you can check out there that gives a bit of the history of the Civilian Conservation Corps. There are also several interpretive programs throughout the summer there at the park that you can get in on, and camping is busy, but
camping is busy, but there are a lot of campsites at this park, and one thing that people don't understand about this park is that it's not just south of the bridge. I mean, there's opportunities to recreate and camp and hike and even kayak north of the bridge that's also part of Deception Pass State Park.
Yeah, there sure is. There's Bowman Bay and Rosario, which are both just beautiful spots. They're kind of the hidden secret, just on the other side of the bridge there. One of the most amazing campgrounds the state parks has is there at Bowman Bay. It's another one that's really difficult to get into, but it's definitely worth spending the time trying to find a site there. Rosario, beautiful walk, beautiful spot to sit and just watch the sunset or just relax and clear your mind.
And when we're talking about fishing, we had earlier mentioned fishing for pink salmon, fishing for silver salmon. You can certainly do that off the beach there at Deception Pass, but there's some freshwater fishing opportunities for trout too, isn't there?
Yeah, there sure is over in Cranberry Lake and also Pass Lake. Pass Lake is more of a fly fishing lake. Cranberry Lake, you can definitely have a little more luck. It's a little easier to grab a fish in there. It's stocked by Fish and Wildlife, so there's all sorts of critters swimming around in there.
In addition to that, there's a couple of concessionaires that have operated in and around the park. One of them will actually give you a tour through Deception Pass. And, this is a private operation, but kind of a fun thing to do. We did that last year. And there's also a kayak company that operates out of Bowman Bay. And that's Anacortes Kayak Company. Had a chance to go out with them a few years ago on a trip. Again, if you are looking for that sort of experience, you can have a great time. But, Bowman Bay, that's the sort of place you can launch a kayak by yourself and have all sorts of fun. If you have any experience at all, you won't get into too much trouble there. All right, so we've covered 3 major state parks here on Whidbey Island. Any other gems here on the island that folks ought to know about in terms of state parks and things that they can do?
Sure. If you head down just south of Coupeville, you have South Whidbey State Park. Beautiful park for hiking. Right now, the campground is closed, but the hiking trails are open. It's also another great spot to do a little bit of fishing. If you don't mind a nice steep hike down to the beach and you're in fairly good shape, you can get down there and have some of the best salmon fishing on the island, pretty much all by yourself. But as far as the forest goes, hiking through the forest, there's some forest just with some wetlands, something that you won't see pretty much anywhere else on the island. So it's really just a unique, special place.
Well, there you go, folks. A 4th state park. Think of that as a bonus for listening to this interview here. John, let's give people a website so they can find out more about these parks and other parks in the state of Washington.
All right, you can visit us at parks.wa.gov.
That's parks.wa.gov, parks.wa.gov for Washington State Parks. They operate over 100 of them, and I'll tell you what, the ones here at Whidbey Island, some of the finest ones you're going to find. And as you've heard, lots of things to do. And one more thing we forgot to mention, there's a lighthouse at Fort Casey too. Check it out. John, thanks for telling us all about this on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Thank you so much.
They were our brothers, our sisters, sons and daughters. They were our parents, family, our neighbors, and our friends. How can we express the gratitude that we all owe the thousands and thousands of American veterans who have sacrificed so much for our country's freedom? It was they who stepped forward from the time this country was created to fight for everything we know about liberty and freedom. And although we celebrate their victories and console them for their losses by creating monuments and honoring them in parades, the truth is we can never do enough for the freedom they've given us. Perhaps the most important thing we can do is reach out to those veterans closest to us and simply tell them, thank you. Thank you for all you've done for freedom. All of us at Shiloh Inns would like to take this opportunity to recognize the many men and women who have served and continue to serve our country so that we will always be free. Thank you, veterans, from everybody at Shiloh Inns.
It doesn't matter what sort of adventure you're after. Whether it's big game deep in the backcountry, a day of fishing out on the water, or an overnight in the great outdoors. At Sportsman's Warehouse, we've got the gear in here for what you need out there. Gear up for your next adventure at one of the Sportsman's Warehouse stores or shop online. Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter.
Good hunters know before you take that shot, you've got to see the whole picture. Now, the best way to do that is with a spotting scope, binoculars, or a rifle scope, but it's got to be from Leupold. Now, Leupold is a Northwest company with a reputation that stretches across the world for making superior optics. Look for Leupold Optics at your local Cabela store, Dick's Sporting Goods, or online at leupold.com. Leupold, America's optical authority.
We're back with John Cruz on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
It's time again for another Max Minute.
Fish on!
Brought to you every week by Max Lure Company. With us again, Lance Mers with Max Lure Company. Lance, everyone's out there after salmon this time of year. People are starting to think steelhead, but let's not forget trout, because trout is probably the biggest fishery for anglers throughout the Northwest, especially in all these lakes that we have here. What do you suggest people use, and what are a couple places we might send people to use these lures?
Well, a lot of times you want to change things up. And everybody, of course, knows about the Max Lure wedding ring. Well, we've kind of lowered the presentation of that, and it's called the Max Lure Wedding Ring Pro. And the Wedding Ring Pro gives it a smaller presentation than the normal wedding ring. It comes in 6 different colors and either a size 6 or an 8 hook with a 0.8 smile blade. It's great for catching panfish, perch, like at Fish Lake in north central Washington. You could also do this at Merwin Lake for trout or kokanee. It's fantastic.
Well, it is definitely downsizing. And sometimes, folks, that's what it takes, especially with heavy pressured fish, is you need to downsize that presentation. So the Wedding Ring Pro, again, it's got a smaller smile blade, fewer beads, only 1 hook instead of 2, but still, it operates the same way as a normal wedding ring spinner. And sometimes downsizing is going to get you better results. So I'm assuming you fish this either behind some weight or behind a flasher or even behind a dodger for success.
You can. Take a couple of split shot weights on it and you can cast it out and have a great effect. Sometimes less is more, and that's all you need.
I agree completely. So whether you use it in places like Lance suggests, like Fish Lake in central Washington or Lake Merwin in southwest Washington, or maybe some other waters like Offutt Lake over in southwest Washington, or maybe Timothy Lake over in northwest Oregon, Lake Como in the Bitterroot Valley of Montana, or even Lake Pend Oreille and Cascade Lake in Idaho, all great places to use the Wedding Ring Pro and other products as well from Max Lure Company. Find out more about them at your local sporting goods store or online at maxlure.com.
The road is calling you to experience one of Oregon's 7 wonders, the Wallowas. So grab your camping equipment and fishing gear and head out to Northeast Oregon, where you'll find the views are endless, the air crisp and clean, and the water's cold and clear. Set up camp by the shores of Wallowa Lake or in the heart of the Wallowa-Whitman National Forest. Take your fishing gear and cast your bait into the deep waters of Wallowa Lake, or roll your fly into one of the eddies of the many freestone creeks and rivers teeming with fish. This summer, take the road that leads to wonders. It begins at WallowaCountyChamber.com.
That's the sound you hear when a fish hits the new sonic bait fish from Max Lure Company. This metal lure can be cast, trolled, or jigged and will catch just about anything that swims in the sea, the river, or the lake. The sonic bait fish has a unique vibration and flutter that can be rigged in 7 different ways. With all sorts of eye-catching colors and weights available, you'll be reaching for the sonic bait fish as your go-to lure. It's the sonic bait fish. And that's another fish on, only from Max Lure Company.
Sonic booms not included with the Sonic Baitfish Strike unless you are fishing for jet fighters.
You're back with Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We're broadcasting on the water in northern Puget Sound, the Salish Sea, actually. We're whale watching today with Island Adventures, and our skipper is Carl Williams. Captain Williams, or Captain Carl, I should say. Welcome to the show. It's been a great day.
Thank you very much. Yes, it has. It's been beautiful out here with a lot of good wildlife, too.
This is our Labor Day weekend broadcast. We're trying to give people some ideas for what they can do, well, either this September or maybe make some plans for next spring and summer. And these whale watching trips that you offer out of Anacortes or something else. And I guess we need to start with that. The great thing about Island Adventures that's different than most of the other companies, you don't have to go to the San Juans. You actually start in Anacortes. You don't have to pay that ferry fee.
Yeah, roger that. Do 5 to 6 hours, too. So we leave out of Anacortes, and we'll go any direction that the whales are. So there's times we're right off the Anacortes waterfront watching them, and then there's times like today that we get to get a little bit of travel, and we'll find out where they're at and get out into the Straits of Juan de Fuca. Wherever the whales are, that's where we go. So definitely easy to leave out of Anacortes.
Well, and I also love this boat. I mean, what a comfortable way to spend a day. The Island Explorer 3. Tell our listeners a little bit about it.
Well, it's 101 feet. It's 2 decks, so you got 100 feet of rail space on the lower deck, half of that on the upper deck. We've got a covered section on the upper deck, too, to block all the sunshine that we get out here. So it's been working well today to shade everybody. You got a main salon area where you can get some food, the galley's in there for you, food, drink, with nice comfortable seating, and then upper deck also with heaters, and makes the nice viewing area.
You know, and something else I love about this boat, besides the size and the amenities, is the crew. You've done a great job for us here today, number one. And number two, you've been assisted by a couple of wonderful crew members. Phoenix, who's been running the galley and helping out with things, and a naturalist who's on board that's been pointing out things along the way.
Yeah, Bart's, he's the most senior naturalist, too. So he's been around probably 14 years. Phoenix is one of our new galley members and doing a great job. Lots of good food that comes out of there. You get pulled pork sandwiches, one of my favorites, and things like that. But she is also learning the naturalist side of it, too. So with Bart being around, he's got a nice camera that he can take great photos. He walks around with a microphone and is able to talk to people in person as well as over the microphone. So we have a nice sound system, too, where you don't have to be bothered by him if you don't want to, or by me when I'm talking.
Something else, you touched on this, that Bart is really good at. You know, wildlife photography and whale photography is not an easy thing, but he's really, really good at it. So if you bring your camera and didn't get the shots you hoped for, you can actually buy a DVD with shots taken during the trip that you're on.
Yeah. He's, like I said, he's been doing it for 13 years, and he has gotten really, really good at it. And that lens he has is definitely makes spectacular shots. I've heard some people today even say that out of 100 plus photos they took, they got one good photo. I think Bart probably got a few more than that. So if they decide to purchase that today, that'd be a good chance for them to. It's all in timing, and it really takes a lot of time to get that down. So his experience in being out here on the water, 5 days a week for 13 years, he's gotten pretty good at it.
You know, the first whale watching trip I went on with Island Adventures was 6 years ago, and I had an incredible amount of photos that either showed where the whale was a minute ago or just the tip of the dorsal fin, and that's it. So you're right, it is all about timing, and if you're not a pro, don't worry. That's why they've got people like Bart on board to take those pictures for you. But bring your camera, because you're going to get a chance to shoot a lot of photography, not only on orca whales, which is the main reason that people come, but on other wildlife too. As a matter of fact, we've seen 3 different species of whales today.
No, started off with the humpback, and he gave us some great tail shots there, too. So hopefully some of the folks got that photo. I know Bart did. And then the minke whale, that's one that we see out here quite a bit. A little bit more elusive, harder to get that shot, and those are the ones that I think people probably definitely look at Bart's photos and go with that as a great shot. But with the orcas that we just had too, the big male dorsal fins are beautiful, and those things are just spectacular when you see them and also get that nice photo of them.
As a matter of fact, not only did we get to see dorsal fin, boy, we actually got to see these orcas breaching today, and members from a couple of different pods, so it was a real treat seeing these orca whales today. But, there's more than that, too. There's marine mammals, saw a stellar sea lion. I'm still not sure if that was a California or a stellar we saw on that buoy.
It was a stellar that was a little bit darker than the normal color of them, so that's why we thought maybe at first it was a California. But by the time we got to see that big skull head of his and how big he was, we knew that was a stellar hauled out on that navigational marker. So that was a great look, too. Got nice and close to him. And then all the porpoise, those are hard to see when you get to see in nice flat conditions like we have. Those are hard to get a picture of, I should say, not hard to see. But those guys move quickly, so that was nice to see also.
So on the marine mammal side, we've had the sea lions, we've had the porpoise, we've had killer whales or orca whales, we've had the minke whales, and we've had the humpbacks. What a great day it's been in terms of seeing lots of wildlife. But something else we ought to talk about here is if you're a birder, this is a great trip to go on because you're seeing all sorts of bird species on this trip that, especially if you live inland, you're never going to see otherwise.
That's about to happen here. We're about to get up closer to the shoreline here and run down the shoreline. Well, I know we've already seen a bunch, but now we'll take a little time out to see what other type of birds we can see along the shoreline and just the beautiful landscape of the area here, too. Today we just happen to be out in the open water a little bit more, but great bait balls with the cormorants, the rhinoceros auklets, all the alcid birds, all grouped up. A lot of good feeding in and around the humpback area there, too. So great abundance of birds out here. And if we can get lucky at the area that we're going to go to, we're going to look for a couple of tough puffins in there and see if we can check those guys out, too.
That would be a real treat. And also, these islands out here, the San Juans, full of bald eagles, and that's usually a sure thing or darn near a sure thing. So if you haven't gotten your bald eagle fix, this is also a good opportunity here. Let's go ahead and talk briefly about prices, because this is really an affordable day when you get down to it. Less than $100 a day, you're going to be out here watching whales all day and in a really comfortable setting.
Oh, yeah. You just have to, initially, I would say go to the website, islandadventurecruises.com, and get all the discounts there.
So, again, folks, if you haven't figured it out, this is a great opportunity. And basically, when are you doing these San Juan Island trips in terms of seasons?
We start actually in March with gray whales down in Everett. So we'll start our season up then. And then with our new boat, the Island Explorer 4, they start in April out of Anacortes. We then moved that boat to Port Angeles, so he's running out of Port Angeles right now, and then we run the Island Explorer 3 out of Anacortes until November. So our season usually is from March through the end of November.
And 3 different locations to launch from. Anacortes is probably the main harbor for the Island Explorer 3 and for Island Adventures, but depending on the time of year, Everett is a choice, and that's actually a very convenient choice, especially if you want those gray whales. And, again, Port Angeles, not a bad place either to go whale watching. A couple reminders for you. If you come, be sure to, even though there are really comfortable accommodations here, you're going to want to spend some time outside to get some photos of the whales. If you got a pair of binoculars, bring those. If you have a camera, bring that. If you don't have the binoculars, though, they've got some loaners on board for you. Dress warm, dress in layers. It's a beautiful day today, but it does get chilly. You are on a boat, so bring a sweatshirt, maybe even a rain jacket to keep the wind off and sometimes the rain too, and get ready for a real fun adventure here with Island Adventures. So, Captain Carl, let's go ahead and give out the website so people can book a trip with you.
Again, that's islandadventurecruises.com, orcawhales.com, or pawhales.com, and you'll go right to the website.
There you go, folks. It's Island Adventures offering some great whale watching trips here in Western Washington. Captain Carl, thanks for a great day.
Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.
You demand quality performance from your binoculars, whether you use them in the field, on the water, or at a stadium. But you don't want to spend a fortune. That's where the BX McKenzie binoculars from Leupold come in. These armored, waterproof binoculars are both comfortable and dependable. Look for your McKenzie binoculars at quality sporting goods retailers near you, to include your Cabela's, Sportsman's Warehouse, or Northwest Bi-Mart stores. BX McKenzie, bringing your world into sharper focus, only from Leupold.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. It's time again for news and reports from the field, brought to you every week by Mardon Resort at Eastern Washington's Potholes Reservoir. The big event that's coming up next after this Labor Day weekend is the annual dock fishing tournament. It's taking place from Friday, September 18th and running through Sunday, September 20th, followed by a great social with lots of pie. Find out more about it and about staying at Mardon Resort at Potholes Reservoir by going to their website at mardonresort.com. That's mardonresort.com, where the fish bite, but we don't. Next, let's head back towards Whidbey Island and the Skagit River and the Anacortes area to go fishing for salmon. Next up on Northwestern Outdoors Radio, we're broadcasting from Holiday Sports in Burlington. That is a great place to be if you want to pick up gear to go humpy fishing, because northern Puget Sound and the rivers around here are chock full of pink salmon right now. With us here to tell us more is the manager of Holiday Sports, Kevin John. Kevin, great to have you back on the show.
Nice to be here, John.
Kevin, let's go ahead and talk about this run this year. How is it sizing up, this every other year pink salmon run, compared to recent years?
We're in pretty good shape this year. Typically we'll see fish, upwards of 1 million here on the Skagit. Last year, on this last cycle anyway, we got down about half. Basically, we got a bunch of reds that got left high and dry with the water conditions we were looking at. But anytime we're over 500,000 fish here on the Skagit in particular, that's enough for a really solid fishery.
Well, I've been hearing some great reports about the fishing in the Sound, and they're starting to show up really in force in the rivers now as well. And let's go ahead and break down how you catch these little rascals. They average 3 or 4 pounds. At least that's what they're running this year. I know they can get a little bit bigger than that, and if you're lucky, you tie into a silver too. But let's start out in the Sound itself. If you've got a boat, what's the drill to go ahead and catch some pinks, and what are some of the places that boaters ought to be going?
Well, this time of year around Labor Day, pretty much everything gets started. So it really just kind of depends on where you want to go. So if we start talking like with Whidbey beaches, for instance, down around Fort Casey, for the boat guys, there's a lot of opportunity there, whether you want to fish just out front of Fort Casey itself or out in front of the ferry terminals there as you work your way south. That can be downriggers or that can be lead. So that's not something that requires a whole bunch of specialty gear. If I want to target a coho, I'm going to look at probably a cut plug herring in that area, but there'll be plenty of pinks around. So, a white dodger or a white flasher with a pink squid is a great way to go for the boat guy. If there's not too much action off of the shore, you can go ahead and throw buzz bombs or jigs out of the beach. Typically that stuff is reserved for the bank guy, just because of gear conflicts, that type of thing. In a boat, you can go anywhere you want to. The beach guy is pretty much restricted to where he gets to fish.
Well, let's talk about the beach guys, and I'm going to be one of them here, tossing buzz bombs and another lure that you're going to tell our listeners about in just a second for some of those humpies right off the beach. And I know Fort Casey's a good place. Deception Pass is a good place. What's the drill for the bank angler?
Well, for the bank guy, we've all heard the buzz bomb, and there's nothing wrong with a buzz bomb. They're very effective. They've been around forever, and they're really a staple here in this area. The big benefit to a buzz bomb is they come in 4 different sizes, so you can get quite a bit of weight when it's needed to get extra distance. When a fish happens to be out closer to the 100-yard mark, you can go to a 3 extra heavy or a 4. While most of the time when we're really targeting them, we can look at a 2 or a 2.5-inch buzz bomb. The other hot stuff coming up anymore really is the rotator, and that's one that comes out of the Olympic Peninsula, and they're very similar in design to a buzz bomb, but they're narrower and they're flatter, so there's less weight to them, and they will tumble longer when they're jigged, which really gives you a very good chance of fish in shallow water in particular, because it stays in the strike zone for so much longer. Now myself, I like to go ahead and put a small pink squid or pink and white squid just in front of my hooks, and I say hooks plural because I like 2 hooks. If you read the regulations, it says single point barbless hooks required for salmon, but it does not say 1 single point barbless hook. So I actually like to take 2 1-aught hooks, Siwash hooks, and put them on like a number 7 barrel swivel, and I'll tuck that up inside the head of my squid, and then my bumper lure, and then my buzz bomb or my rotator, and that'll give me two things that fish is targeting. That squid itself will sink much slower than the buzz bomb does, so there's something that's a lot easier for him to chase down.
So that's the drill when it comes to fishing in the Sound for the pinks. But let's talk about fishing the Skagit River. What are some of the hot spots there? And we'll start again with boaters. How do you go ahead and get these fish in the boat?
Well, for the boat guy, the last couple, probably 4 cycles now, the jig fishery has really come on. And that's a really great way to go. Earlier in the season, we haven't really seen huge numbers of fish in the system. So it's tough to get at them with a jig when you don't have them stacked. So basically up to this point, we've seen primarily guys plunking, whether that's with sand shrimp or big spoons, or casting Dick Knights and things of that nature do the best. Although as they start to stack up into some of those deeper holes like we see down in the Burlington and Mount Vernon area, jigs can just be really effective.
Now, these same tactics that you talked about for boaters, these are exactly the same things that people are doing off the riverbank too, aren't they?
They really are. You're going to run them a little bit differently. For instance, a boat guy, if he was going to plunk, typically is going to use a cannonball sinker, and he can use something in the 2-ounce range, whereas typically the guy off the bank will have to use a pyramid so it doesn't keep rolling, and it'll usually be around 4 ounces. Dick Knights work very well off of the bank as well. They're rigged slightly different typically, and jigs can be pretty effective, although you're going to lose a couple more of them if you're fishing off of the bank.
What about just a simple pink spoon? I have fond memories of about 15 years ago coming out here to the Skagit over by the railroad bridge, tossing pink spoons, just kind of letting them work their way downstream and doing quite well on the pinks.
There is nothing wrong with a spoon. You kind of hit that one on the head. That's my big favorite thing. If I'm going to go fish anything from, steelhead to silvers to pinks, I'd like to throw a 1/2-ounce weighted spoon. That's my drill. So the old Humpy Special is a great way to go. Pink on one side, it's white on the other. Silver actually works really well too, especially in clear water conditions. The great thing with those is, they're a couple of bucks a piece rather than a, $4 or $5 rig with some of the other stuff. So if you're, new to a hole and you're a Dick Knight guy, maybe try a Humpy Special first. You can afford to lose a couple of those before you really get in there and start throwing your go-to lure, but you'll be amazed how easy they are to fish and how effective they can be.
Absolutely correct. All right, last but not least, we're talking Labor Day here. How long is this fishing going to keep up both in the Sound and in the Skagit River for this great humpy season we're looking at?
Well, we should be in pretty good shape for a couple of more weeks. Typically, Labor Day is that point where everything really hits its peak. The Samish River gets going typically right around then. We really start to see the first good push of coho come into the rivers. The first couple of 3 weeks of September are just stupid out at Deception usually for guys fishing coho out there, fishing the hole with a cut plug herring and a dodger, and that's a lot of fun. Typically, the coho fishery is going to go very well through the first week of October, and then about the time we get to, say, a general deer season, the 10th of October, you're really torn whether you want to be fishing the river for coho or if you want to go deer hunting. Myself, I try to do both.
Well, there you go, folks. So you got a whole month ahead of you for both pink fishing and then silver fishing in the Sound and on the Skagit River. And if you need some gear, and I know you're going to, just like I did today, stop by Holiday Sports, conveniently located on Highway 20, right off of I-5 in Burlington. Kevin, thanks for the fishing report. Always enjoy visiting with you.
And nice to see you again, John.
We're going to leave Whidbey Island for a little bit in the Anacortes area because I want to tell you about a passing. And this is kind of a somber note. August 19th, 3 wildland firefighters lost their lives fighting a fire in north central Washington near the Twisp River. Their names? Tom Bashevsky, Andrew Sajak, and Richard Wheeler. Young men fighting fire for the Forest Service. I played a small part in helping to put together a memorial service for them in Wenatchee, Washington a couple of weeks ago. I was quite honored to do so and got to learn about these young men. And what I found out is not only were they passionate about what they did as firefighters, but they were also passionate outdoorsmen. Every one of them was an angler, and every one of them caught bigger fish than I've caught in a long time. Not only that, but a couple of them really like to hike too. Andrew Sajak and Richard Wheeler, lots of photos of them during this memorial, enjoying time in the Cascades, enjoying time on the trail hiking. You could just tell all 3 of these young men were as passionate about the outdoors as they were about trying to protect nature and our homes and our property, and they died doing a job and a service for us. So do me a favor, say a prayer for them, give some thoughts and prayers to their family as well. And the next time you see a Forest Service firefighter and a wildland firefighter, shake their hand, tell them thanks, and let them know you're thinking of them. Don't go away. We're going to be right back with some upcoming events and the Sportsman's Warehouse Trivia Question of the Week, where our question focuses on wildland firefighting.
Need a lightweight camp stove for your next adventure? The new Striker Series stove from Camp Chef is the perfect solution. 2 models of this single-burner stove let you cook using propane or isobutane. The heat ring technology built into the stove's cookware lets you boil water in less than 2 minutes. And like everything else in the Camp Chef line, the Striker Series stove is built tough. If you hike, paddle, hunt, or fish and cook while you do it, you're going to love the Striker Series stove. Find it at your local sporting goods store or at campchef.com. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
Nate Luther wants to take you fishing for monster sturgeon on the Snake River and Hell's Canyon. If you're looking for a fishing adventure, this one is hard to beat. Find out more by going to Nate's Facebook page at Nate Luther's Guide Service or give Nate a call at 208-503-9204. That's 208-503-9204 for Nate Luther's Guide Service.
It doesn't matter what sort of adventure you're after. Whether it's big game deep in the backcountry, a day of fishing out in the water, or an overnight in the great outdoors. At Sportsman's Warehouse, we've got the gear in here for what you need out there. Gear up for your next adventure at one of the Sportsman's Warehouse stores or shop online. Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter.
We're back with one last cast from John Cruz on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
We've got some upcoming events for you before we go. The Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife is hosting several pheasant hunting workshops and hunts, too, at wildlife management areas around the state this month. Some are for families, some are for women, and some are for youth. They are all designed to teach you about pheasant hunting and get you into this absolutely awesome sport. I'll tell you what, once you flush a rooster behind a good dog, you're going to get hooked. Trust me. The cost for these workshops and hunts vary from $52 to no cost at all to attend. Find out more at the ODFW website. Once you're there, simply go to the ODFW Outdoor Calendar page. If you want to hunt prehistoric animals, or pretend you are at any rate, head to the First Peoples Buffalo Jump State Park near Great Falls this Labor Day weekend for their annual Montana Atlatl Mammoth Hunt. The folks from Montana State Parks tell me the atlatl is a 10,000-year-old type of weapon that predates the bow and arrow, and if you come, experts with this weapon will help you learn about and practice with it. You'll also get to shoot primitive bows and throw tomahawks and throw some knives too. Just don't throw them at each other. Now, how's that for going medieval? Best of all, it's all free except for the entry fee into the park. Now let's run through an upcoming event at your local Sportsman's Warehouse store. It's the Fall Hunting Sale. Incredible deals are coming your way this month, and you're going to start to see them next week. Rifles, shotguns, binoculars, trail cams, hunting apparel, cook stoves for elk camp, and more. It's all there. Look for an insert in your local newspaper or head to your local Sportsman's Warehouse store or even shop online 24/7 at sportsmanswarehouse.com to find out more. And now, it's time for your trivia question of the week. We're giving it to you thinking of those wildland firefighters. You see, they use a tool designed by a forest ranger to dig hand lines. It was invented after the big burn of 1910 that devoured a good portion of the Idaho Panhandle and western Montana. In fact, this particular U.S. Forest Service ranger that invented this tool saved the lives of 45 wildland firefighters near Wallace, Idaho, and suffered severe injuries himself. So the question is this: what is the name of this hand tool named after this stoic and heroic Forest Service ranger that sports an axe on one hand and what looks like a hoe on the other? You can give us your answer on our Facebook page at Northwestern Outdoors Radio. Simply like our page and give us your answer, or go to our website, go to our Contact Us page. That's at northwesternoutdoors.com. Let us know the answer. Who is this hand tool named after? Something that's standard issue for wildland firefighters. The website again, northwesternoutdoors.com, and the Facebook page is at Northwestern Outdoors Radio. Everyone who answers correctly is entered to win, and we will go ahead and pick one lucky winner after our last broadcast who's going to get a $25 gift card from Sportsman's Warehouse. While you are on the web, check out another website. It's called RenoViolaOutdoors.com. It's the home of WRVO Radio, an internet station that has nothing but outdoors programming 7 days a week. It's a great station. We're on there too. We air a lot on Wednesdays and several other days as well. The website again, RenoViolaOutdoors.com. Check it out. I think you're going to like it. That's all for this week. I hope you enjoyed our time on Whidbey Island in northwestern Washington and on the waters of the Salish Sea as much as our family did. Whether you want to camp, fish, or watch wildlife, this is a fantastic place to do it. It's Labor Day weekend and it's the last hurrah of summer, so until next time, take care, God bless, and make it a point to spend some time outdoors.